All right, welcome to another installment of Chalk Talk with Chuck. And I'm just sort of going to wing this one and tell you my thoughts on what's going on in sports right now, what I think of the sports world, and this sort of odd time that we sit in pre NBA playoffs, just the start of the MLB season. I know hockey's getting interesting at the same time. I don't know anything about hockey, though. Sorry to the hockey fans. And the NFL draft, which is definitely where a lot of my energy's been focused. So I'll save that for last. The NBA stuff. NBA is so weird at this point in time in the season. You have sort of the clear teams who are like ready to start the real tanking process, right? You have like Oklahoma City not playing anybody. You got a bunch of these like with especially with the expanded draft, which a lot of people aren't fans of, which I'm starting to like the idea of. So you've got these weird fringe teams in there. This is the first time we've got that, which has kept some of the games like the Curry stuff is probably not going on without the play-in games. I don't think they're sitting a couple of games out, and they definitely went for like the full rebuild, not trading the Wiseman pick. So they seem to be thinking in the future with that. If they were to trade that, I think it would have said like we're not ready for the youth rebuild. They're trying to like reload around Steph while they still have him playing at a high level, which might not be the best thing for his happiness. I don't know how you're going to keep a guy like Steph Curry happy if the best pieces you're putting around him are Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green. Um, but the NBA is at this weird point, and the games are exciting for these teams who are on the fringe. I I'm guessing there's going to be this weird push in the West between like the 5 through 7 seed where these teams are going to really try to not be the 7 to not have to play the play-in game, especially Dallas, who Mark Cuban's come out and said he's now upset even though everyone voted for the revenue bump. So it seems weird, but I like it. It's keeping the games competitive where I think normally right now the games wouldn't be that competitive or fun. There's also a lot of guys injured anytime when you're a sports league and you have your like biggest star out for a big portion of the regular season, right? Like LeBron has just been gone from the league for so long now, and he was doing the whole MVP thing. He gets the high ankle sprain. They clearly are just saying no rush back. Let's just have you there for the playoffs. They haven't had AD for God knows how long now. And anytime that happens, it's just not good. And you had him beat out for so long, and now he's back and he's playing well. Um, you lose Jamal Murray and the Denver thing, which I think is going to solidify Jokic to win the MVP. And it's weird because there was so much MVP talk for so long, and now I don't hear anyone talking about it. And I guess it's because it's such a crapshoot. Like, who's going to win the MVP when you have this season where people sitting out multiple games for COVID, so many injuries, there's no fans in the stands. It's definitely going to be like the asterisk MVP, like the biggest asterisk MVP of all time. Like, oh yeah, you mean the season where a bunch of players didn't play because they were sick, and the 3 front runners for the trophy got injured halfway through the year and didn't play for 2 months? Oh, okay. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like my NBA take right now. I'm hoping the Jazz can hold on to the first seed. They're playing good basketball. They got really lucky. Donovan's injury was not severe, and not only was it not severe, it just falls in this period of time in their schedule where they're just going to play a bunch of tanking sub 500 teams. So all good news on that front. And the East is shaking itself out, sort of. Looks like Brooklyn's going to take over that 1 seed over Philadelphia. Who's going to beat Brooklyn, huh? I mean, maybe Milwaukee. There has to be some funky stuff that goes on, but maybe Milwaukee, they've got good perimeter defense and they have Giannis. But you're going to start getting those whispers like Man, Giannis is good, but is he just a regular season guy? Man, Giannis is good, but he can't do the playoff thing. And it sucks for the small market teams that that's the narrative, even though Milwaukee has done literally everything possible to keep him around. And they'll keep him around. I know they have him on that Supermax deal, and just maybe feels like, did they miss a window? Was there a window? The Toronto loss certainly didn't feel like a bad loss. Like they lost to a good Toronto team that went on to win the finals, and the way that Golden State got injured in the finals that year, there was no way that they were going to win. So whoever won the East was going to win the finals. But yeah, the Milwaukee thing, it almost feels like it's just going to shake out in a really sad way. But maybe they can contend. Boston is catching fire, but they don't seem to be really playing anybody of any great significance. So I guess as we get closer to the playoffs, I'll, of course, try to talk a little bit more about that. But a lot of the playoff matchups could be fun. Really fun. The West playoff matchups are going to be great. Whoever gets the 8th seed is going to give Utah a hard time if Utah holds on to the first. Whoever gets the 7th seed is definitely going to give Phoenix a hard time. I can't imagine wanting to play Luka Doncic or Steph Curry in the first round. And then, the 3 through 6 seeds are all just sort of hanging there. I mean, could you imagine if LeBron's a 5 seed? And the 4 seeds, the Clippers? The NBA would hate that, but I'd love it as a fan. Or, even a 6 seed and the 3 seeds, the Clippers. So, interesting stuff. All interesting. All definitely kind of in this weird balance, like hanging in the balance feeling to it. So, yeah. The MLB's been great. If you're a Yankee fan, it hasn't, though. And the COVID stuff definitely has its impact. It definitely played its impact with the Nationals. The Dodgers have to be the favorite. And the Mookie thing is just, I mean, poor Boston. Boston is just so bad. And Mookie Betts has just been so good in Los Angeles since he got there. It's just a true bummer. But the MLB's it's been fun. I'm watching. There's so many overreactions, and it's so hard to get into the game when it's this early on in the season, just because there's 100 games left to play. And that's just the scheduling thing, and that's just how they do it. I don't know if you can change the schedule to make it more interesting. I don't know if shortening the schedule does anything for the MLB really. Because if you're a fan, you're a fan, and if you can enjoy a game that's slow paced, you can. But if you can't, then you're never going to get behind it. The Super League soccer thing, I don't understand at all, so I'm not going to comment. I guess there are some people who are upset. I don't know who it benefits and who it hurts. I don't know. But the main thing that's going on, and the big thing that's going to be happening really soon, is the NFL draft. And I think that the draft is so fun every year because everyone's got their version of a mock draft. Everyone's got their version of like what's going to happen and their take on how it's going to shake out and who's going to trade what and who's going to do this. And it always comes down to like interesting quarterback drama. And, there's never in my lifetime been a pick more like consensus based than the like consensus around Trevor Lawrence. And it's been like that for a very long time. I mean, since he smoked Bama in the NCAA championship game, I'm pretty sure everyone was just like, well, this guy's going to be the number one pick whenever he's available. And he didn't really disappoint. The guy didn't lose. I think he lost like 2 or 3 games as a college student, which is insane. I mean, it's just fucking insane. And he has been just like the perfect model quarterback, and he's obviously going to go to Jacksonville, and he's going to team. This is how crazy good he is no matter how consensus you feel like a number one pick is going to be, like the Bradford pick and the Stafford pick. And when those guys were coming out of college and it was like so obvious Detroit's going to take Stafford, and where did Bradford start his career? I can't even remember where Bradford started his career because it was such a roller coaster. But when those guys were coming out, there was always like they could take the tackle or they should go this way, really in that direction. And Urban Meyer signs a contract with Jacksonville. And Urban Meyer, of course, is former Ohio State head coach. He recruited Fields, he coached Fields, and not once did I really ever even see an article or anyone say, will Fields go first? Urban Meyer essentially stepped in and was like, yeah, Lawrence is still the guy. And he's just chalked in at 1. And then after him at 2, it seems like the Jets are just like sold on this kid from BYU. And I don't get why this isn't getting more criticism. And maybe it is somewhere out there on the internet, but I'm not seeing it. And I'm sorry, but what about the schedule that this kid played last year makes you think, yeah, you know what? He is going to be really good. Yeah, you know what? I think that guy, it does see coverage as well. Because when the game speeds up, even if it speeds up a quarter of a degree or a half a degree, that kid seemed flustered. They played one ranked team, Eastern Carolina, and he wasn't particularly sick in that game, right? Or Eastern Carolina, something like that. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I watched the game. They played one ranked team, and he didn't look great. And they lost. And the rest of their schedule were layup after layup after layup, and he balled out against these layups, and I get it. You know, not everybody can ball out against a layup because if everybody could, then they would, be talked about like he's been talked about. But, like, I watched that kid throw more touchdowns to the Utes than he threw to his own team. Period. I saw that in a game, in an NCAA football game. I saw that. And yeah, when I watched it, I said, this kid's pretty good. He's athletic, he can throw. But I didn't think, consensus number 2 overall pick while I watched it. And maybe the quarterback talent isn't that good, and that's why it's happening. Fields is dropping, and it seems like you hit the 3rd pick, which San Francisco traded up for, and everything is up for grabs. You hear Trey Lance's name. You hear Mac Jones's name. You hear Justin Fields' name. Fuck, I've heard they're going to trade back out of the pick. Look, if you're sold on Mac Jones, why trade to the 3rd slot in the draft? You're sitting at 12. I think Jones is going to be around. There's a lot of hype around Trey Lance. I think that Justin Fields is a better quarterback and has a higher ceiling. Both of those guys probably have higher ceilings. And San Francisco is this plug and chug organization, right? You can throw anybody in there and he's going to play quarterback and it's not going to move the needle too much unless we get a guy like Russell Wilson or a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady, like a generational guy who can completely unlock the playbook. But you're going to sit me down and look me in the eye and go, this Mac Jones kid. And maybe I'm wrong. And maybe there's something they see in Mac Jones that I don't see because I'm not an NFL scout and I don't, evaluate an NFL talent that way. But if you're sitting there on the eye test as a fan and you sit me down and you look at me and you can honestly tell me, I think Mac Jones brings a lot more to the table than Jimmy G does as far as opening up the playbook for San Francisco. You're fucking lying to me. I don't see it. How many degrees more is he going to give you? Let's not forget Jimmy G took the team to a Super Bowl. Not only that, he went toe-to-toe with Drew Brees. And really, what was the last Drew Brees hopeful year to go to the Super Bowl and win it, right? And he beats him in the Superdome. 350 yards, 3 touchdowns. Huge toss to Kittle at the end of the game to secure the victory. Play good quarterback. Again, and then accepted his role after having these monster games against these teams that he needs to have monster games against, which included both the games versus Russell Wilson, one he lost and one he won, right? And then he goes into the playoffs and says, yeah, you know what? I'm happy handing the ball off 35 times. I'm fine with that. I'm fine only throwing the ball 12 times or whatever the number was when they played Green Bay. And you go to the Super Bowl and he puts together what is a pretty great performance. He misses one throw and now we're all back to, Jimmy G's not the guy. We got to get rid of him. But Mac Jones is going to move that needle? Fuck off. I mean, come on. Maybe Trey Lance, maybe Justin Fields, maybe with the athleticism. And, I think a lot of people are pegging Fields as like this running quarterback because he can run, but the kid is a good thrower. And after that Clemson game, the whispers were there. Like, oh man, he just really put the beat down on this Clemson team. And, he looked really good the entire time. Is this for real? Like maybe he could be someone who we get challenges of the number one, and then it's all fallen off, and it's like this kid could fall to the Steelers? This kid could fall out of the top 10? I don't get it. I think it would be a bad move. If that's the move you're going to make, the Mac Jones thing, just go draft the tight end out of Florida. The kid out of Florida, if you put him next to Kittle in the offense, who knows what could happen? 2 tight end set, and you run the football that well too? The pre-snap motion could be insane. The athleticism on the outside of each part of that offensive line could be insane. But you know what? Why trade up all the way to number 3 then? San Francisco seems to be just kind of flirting with the wrong idea here. They gave up, they mortgaged a little bit of their future for Mac Jones, for a guy that to me succeeded, and I know the numbers are there from this last season. I know that people posted numbers like, wow, Burrow was doing this, but Mac Jones is doing the same thing and nobody's talking about it. But, Jones feels like a product of a system more than Burrow did. And it feels like you're throwing away future picks when you could have got this guy at 12 anyway. And I think that's my biggest complaint. You could have gotten the guy at 12 anyway, and instead you traded up 3 to grab him. I don't know. I mean, and if you don't get him, like my opinion is the margin between the two is just not that big. It's just like the gap between these two players is so small between Garoppolo and Jones on what they offer in offense. Where at least with Fields or this Trey Lance kid, it seems like you're going to get a guy who has a little bit of the physical athleticism and run ability. And Lance is always going to get the comp to Wentz when he came out of North Dakota. But, Fields might bring something completely unique. And even just the threat of him being able to scramble and run downfield, do you have to spy him? Okay, now that you're spying him, what can we do with all this pre-snap motion stuff to draw that out of a team? And, what can we do to, overexpose teams for doing that? And they just seem to be like, we really want this super vanilla quarterback who's going to just play very classic Alex Smith football. We're not going to turn the ball over. But if that's what you want to do, just don't turn the ball over with Jimmy G. Discipline him a little bit. I know he throws some bad picks, and he throws picks from time to time, but, discipline him a little. Give him his confidence back. You'd be amazed what that'll do for a guy. It just seems so silly to me that's the direction. After you do all of this, that's the direction you go into. I personally wouldn't do it. I would just go draft Fields and take the risk. You've already taken the risk of mortgaging the future. And and then the rest of the draft kind of goes in however that pick falls. Atlanta's in sort of a curious position. What are they going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to try to get another weapon for, one more run with the Matt Ryan thing? I think if the kid from Florida is available, you take him. And if Cincinnati drafts Jamar Chase, I've been seeing so much stuff about Cincinnati getting Jamar Chase so that they can reunite with Burrow. I'll swear to fucking God, if they don't draft the kid out of Oregon, Penny Sewell, to play tackle for them, I'm going to lose it. Joe Burrow's got a scar from his knee to his ankle from the fucking abuse he took after not having an O-line last year. And their front office is like, yeah, but it would be super Instagram dope if we brought Jamar Chase in. Hey, Instagram dope teams don't win games. Ask the Eagles that. When they had Mike Vick and, Nnamdi Asomugha and LaShawn McCoy and Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, you want to know what that team did? They went 2 games under 500 and they got Chip Kelly fired. That's what that team did. Teams that are good and that win games, they're not Instagram dope. They're not. And that's just such a bad move for Cincinnati not taking Sewell. Now, if he's not there, he's not there. And then you go, okay, well, like, do we get another receiver for him to throw to? Do we draft maybe another tackle that's available? But there's no way that you can't start building the line now. You have to, or you're going to waste Burrow's years. It's like I said, my opinion is you don't draft skill position and you don't draft flashy guys until you have the line secure, because you're going to waste years of your future franchise quarterback's career on injury or running for his life and hating it. Look at Andrew Luck. Spent way too much money outside of the offensive line on him and on nonsense, right? And when that happens, fatigue sets in. He takes too many hits. The next thing you know, Andrew Luck, the golden boy, right? Do you want to talk about consensus number 1 overall pick? That's the last time I can remember a guy like Lawrence, right? Just a prodigy. And he was like, dude, I'm fucking out, man. I'm not playing this game anymore. I think about my future. And everyone was like, sad moment, but you know what? Yeah, you're right, Andrew Luck. You've been running for your goddamn life there for 4 years. You've had 20 concussions. You're fine. Joe Burrow takes another nasty leg injury. Fuck it, he's out there hobbling on 1 foot, and you drafted Ja'Marr Chase, and he doesn't even have the time to find a fucking running back in the flats, let alone a guy 40 yards down. And Chase is going to be an animal. I mean, whoever gets him is lucky. God, a couple teams out there, it's like, man, you're going to pass on Ja'Marr Chase, that's going to be a tough pass, but Cincinnati's not one of them. Cincinnati is not one of them. I don't get that. I don't get that mentality at all. Because the receiver position is dependent on 3 things. That is the fact that the scheme is good enough to get them open, the ball is thrown to them, and there's enough time for the quarterback for the ball to get to them, right? And 2 of those things are completely out of their control. Like maybe the scheme doesn't get them open, but they can physically get themselves open. Like, Chad Ochocinco used to do that in Cincinnati, and Randy Moss did it for years, where it's just like, I'm better and faster and stronger than everybody out here. I'll get myself open. And that's kind of what Ja'Marr Chase looks like, right? Bigger, better, faster than every other receiver or any corner and any safety out there. I'm going to go ahead and get myself open. That's fine. That's great. But if Burrow doesn't have time to get him the ball, then what's the fucking point? They also got T. Higgins, who had a good rookie year. And they got that Tyler Boyd kid, who's really good too. Over 100 catches. If you play fantasy football and you've had him on your team, consistent wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 guy on a fantasy team. And if they can give Burrow time to throw, then you know what? There's going to be another dream receiver out there the next year. I'm sorry he didn't play with Burrow in college. Get a receiver in the 2nd round. Steelers did it with Claypool. Steelers did it with Juju. Just doesn't make any sense to me. The running back stock has really dropped. There's usually a running back who's flirting with these high picks, in the history of sort of the draft the past couple of years, where you have like 1 or 2 guys who goes pretty high, be it Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette or Saquon Barkley, guys like that, right, that go really high in the draft. And it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. Like maybe the highest pick is going to be, low teens. And that's, that's just the way the game's evolved. Running backs are done by committee. The every down back's lifespan is maybe 4 years. Maybe. New York's got to be kicking themselves for the Saquon pick, because it's like injury. He played a full year, but in that 1 full year that he did play, they were garbage, so it didn't really matter. His contributions didn't matter. And, I think maybe he's on his 4th year of his contract, or he's in his 4th year now, and they're still not completely there. I think they can win their division just because their division is so bad. And, but they didn't have all of the other pieces around him. And while he was great, it didn't really amount to anything. And his prime window was probably missed as an every down back. I can't say that for certain. Maybe he has 1 or 2 good years left in him, but, look at Gurley. Todd Gurley, like 1.5 good years. Le'Veon Bell, 4 good years in Pittsburgh. I mean, the every down back, the utility knife back who, is going number one in the fantasy pick because you're using them every down. Their lifespan is pretty short. It's pretty short, especially doing that. I mean, I know people are going to bang the whole argument out about Frank Gore, but Frank Gore's been a rotational back now for 7 years. I mean, really since he left San Francisco. He hasn't been an every down back. And the game was different when he played in San Francisco. The running back position was just different. What you were asking of the guy was different. So I don't exactly know what the future of that position holds. All the kids are going over to wide receiver. And if you're a good running back, that's great, but you're probably not going to make that much money. Unless you're King Henry. All the long-term running back contracts, there should be 10% of them given to Derrick Henry. Because for Christ's sakes, he's the only guy really doing it. And, CMC got injured last year, but he was not injury-prone before that. He's gotten tagged with this weird narrative of being an injury-prone guy. He hadn't missed a game since college up until, the end of last season. And I know he sustained an injury and had the injury bug this year, but that seems a little jumpy the gunny there. People say the injury-prone thing. It's like you go back and look at the body of work. And it should just be a rule for the fantasy drafters and the fantasy people out there. If the guy's the consensus number 1 overall pick at running back, he's probably going to get hurt. It's happened a couple years in a row now. Barkley and this last year CMC. And, that's just the reality. And I think, Kamara's going to throw his hat in the ring for that this year, and Henry will. And, if you're looking at the amount of games they've played and the amount of snaps that they've had at a position that's become incredibly physical and demanding quite a lot, the injuries they're going to come. That is, if anyone could ever tackle Derrick Henry. Might not come for him. Age might come for Derrick Henry. That's about it. It's about the only thing he should fear in his rearview mirror. But yeah, I would, if I were a team, I'd hesitate to draft a running back anywhere. People really want Pittsburgh to take a running back in the first round because Pittsburgh's done this really cool thing where they're signing all of these guys who were supposed to leave for less money. And I think it's just because they like playing in Pittsburgh. People like playing in Pittsburgh. They do. It's good culture. Fans take care of the players. They're they're a staple in the league. They're always in the mix. And they have a lot of fun, and they got a coach that players like playing for. And I know Tomlin takes a lot of heat, but you're not bringing these guys back unless they like playing for the guy and they love playing for him. You're not bringing Juju back on a smaller contract. You're not bringing Tyson Alou back on a smaller contract. You're not bringing Vince Williams back on a small contract. And I know it stirs up a lot of things that are wrong, but again, you've got to secure the O-line, and they don't have that. So I hope they get boring with it, and I hope they take an O-lineman. Get boring with it. When in doubt, get boring with it. Take the consensus tackle or guard that's available on the board. Because you know what? Yeah, he might not, sell jerseys. He might not make flashy plays because he's on the line. You know what he is going to do? He's going to protect the shit out of the guys that do it for you. And it's interesting to see how teams are angling, and the teams that are in the draft conversation, the teams that aren't. It's been weird not to have Cleveland buzz around the draft. I'm not going to lie. Cleveland owned so many draft picks for so long in my life. And not only they own a lot of draft picks, they drafted poorly, and they were always in the top mix, and now they're not. And you know what? They've done a really good job this offseason. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney, another threat on the D-line, to line up next to Myles Garrett. And God, teams are going to hate to block that guy. And I know Clowney's been underwhelming in certain settings, and I know he's been very overwhelming and very, very exciting in other settings. But hopefully in Cleveland he plays well, because it's nice to have good teams. And it's nice to have lots of competition all over the map. And I think the NFL is so lucky because their product is so, so good week in and week out. And and they're in great hands. This is going to be an awesome draft. There's a lot of talent on the board. And once you get outside of the, second pick, it's exciting, and that's great for the league. It's great for viewership. I'm excited to just see what happens in general, when it comes to what are some of these playoff teams going to do? What does Tampa do to adapt to this new era of having the greatest quarterback ever, and they just won a Super Bowl, and Going into the next season, yeah, it feels like, what year is going to be the Tom Brady year? Let's just not think about that till it comes. Let's go out and draft, I don't know what they need, maybe a linebacker. The NFC is weird. I don't know where the football team's going to go with their pick, for example. The football team sits in a really nice situation, actually, where their division's kind of a mess. It's been a mess for like the past 2 years, and it's not getting any cleaner. I don't think New York is ready to make the jump that I think they'll be able to make in a couple of years, regardless of Daniel Jones's development. Just because I think they've got that Blake Martinez kid on defense, and they've sort of started to build that offense really nicely. I just don't think that they're ready for that playoff jump yet. And then you've got Philadelphia, who's a fucking disaster. I can't tell you what's going on there. And this whole mentality about like we have 2 quarterbacks that they've had for years now, bad mentality. Don't want your quarterback looking over their shoulder every 3 days, hoping that they don't get benched for throwing a pick. No. Talk to Tony Romo about that. Security in your job clears the mind of mistakes at the quarterback position. And then you've got Dallas, who knows what Dak is going to look like coming back. What are they going to do about that O-line? They had a billion defensive issues last year. What are they going to do to rebuild that? I know that they've probably signed some guys in free agency, but the problems that they had didn't seem like a one-off season problem fix for me. Of course, there's the example of the Saints a couple of years back where their defense was so bad the year before, and then they just drafted an ocean of guys and probably should have gone and won the Super Bowl if not for that really weird, the Minneapolis Miracle. If not for one really weird play, that team's probably in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, right? There's all of that, so maybe you can rebuild the defense, but then still you're looking at kind of an offense with a bunch of these sexy receivers, a one-legged quarterback, and a running back who's a head case with a bad O-line. Zeke had fumble problems last year. Fumble problems. So if you're the football team, you're going, hey, you want to know what we've got? The best defensive line in our division. Maybe the best offensive line in our division. 2 or 3 running backs that we believe we can play. So we've got the committee-based running back. Great receiver in Scary Terry. A really nice tight end in Logan Thomas. And it's not too much of the sexy stuff on the outside like some of these other teams got in the division. And our secondary looked pretty good. We have an underrated secondary. So now what do we need? Well, we need the quarterback of our future because Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't a Super Bowl quarterback. No matter how good the football team is, Fitzpatrick's one of these guys where you're only going to go as far as he carries you. Now, is he going to be exciting to watch week to week? Absolutely. But you're only going to go about as far as Fitzpatrick is going to take you. So maybe you draft Trey Lance if he's available. Or Justin Fields if he's available. And that's the crazy thing about the whole San Francisco pick is it really determines this bottom half of the draft, because if they take Fields, then Lance is going to go, and then it's like, okay, well, Mac Jones is like, well, we're not going to take Mac Jones. We got this Heineke kid, or we've got Fitzpatrick. We can wait our turn and maybe bundle a trade for a guy that we think is going to be a little bit too expensive on our D-line or whatnot. Or maybe they just go middle linebacker, which they really need. But, they could end up taking a quarterback. And then, Fitzpatrick's been there before. He warms up the new rookie quarterback. The guy comes in, they go to the playoffs. They have a little exciting playoff run. So I think they're in a really cool position. And I'm excited to see how that develops and how that works out. And I still have, if San Francisco's taking the quarterback and they think they're taking the quarterback of the future, then they've got to ship Jimmy G. The guy was in a Super Bowl 2 years ago. You can't just get rid of him for nothing. Or you can't just have him riding pine. And I know that they've consistently said that they want a first rounder for him. And, New England's offered a second rounder. On draft night, we'll see. On draft night, we will see. Because if New England's sitting there, if they draft Fields or Jones or whoever they draft, and there's a lot of excitement, and you can feel it in the air, and, the GM and the coach are feeling good about what just happened, and New England's coming at you with, a contemporary pick and a first round pick and a third next year, and, God knows who else or what else, and you're just kind of sitting there like, well, they really want Jimmy G, let's give it to him. But I could see New England, if that not happening, moving up to get a quarterback. I know Cam Newton signed the 1-year deal, and he's back there, and people are excited for Cam, and New England has issues in other places. Signing Nelson Aguilar is not the solution to the problem, right? They need targets, and they need offensive weapons bad. I don't want to focus too much on the defense for them, right? Because the McCourty brothers sat out, Devonta Hightower sat out, and I think Chase Winovich is going to be really good. You're throwing a kid, right, a middle linebacker to play in the Belichickian system without anyone next to him coaching him up. So I've probably said that before on a podcast. If not, there's my first take. Winovich is going to be so much better with Hightower back there. Another signal caller, a guy who's familiar with the defense. He's got another year under his belt in the defense. So, I really think that that's where that is going to go directionally. But the draft is super interesting, as you can tell. I mean, I'm really passionate about where it's going to go. I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited to see how these middling teams, who I think are on sort of the cusp of playoff berth, lay out their plan. Do they lay out for the future? Do they mortgage? What are they going to do? And I talked about all of this without talking about Miami, who's got an ocean of picks. And no one's really talking about the Miami stuff, but it's like, Miami, I'm pretty sure they're the ones with the Houston pick. Well, look at the draft order. Yeah, Miami's got Philadelphia's pick at 6. They could get Jamar Chase. That would be insane. They definitely got to get 2 or more targets. Maybe they go with Devonta Smith. I mean, and that's cool. There's so many good receivers. And there's going to be just more good receivers every year. There's going to be so many good receivers, right? And, I mean, Jamar Chase is above and beyond what anyone else is offering. What does Carolina do? They brought Darnold down. They've got Teddy Football. I think you can trade Teddy for a second or a third kind of thing. Probably more of a third. Pick up another pick. Maybe draft targets, but they definitely need help on that defense. Good Lord. They've got a great coach. I love Matt Rule, and I'm really excited to see how they play this out. Philadelphia's down at 12. God knows what they're going to do. I won't even try to pretend to guess what Philadelphia is going to do, because the way they've drafted the past couple of years is fucking dog water. Yeah, and then Miami is Houston's second-round pick, which is a high pick. Could really do something nice there. Really do something nice there. So interesting. So interesting to see how this shook out. How it's going to play out. Like, what does Minnesota do? Minnesota had such a weird year last year. And, given Dalvin Cook's healthy, given the Justin Jefferson Thielen thing continues to work out, it seems like the Kirk Cousins is just a permanent fixture there. What's Chicago going to do? Are they going to try to trade in somewhere where they feel like they can get, a quarterback of the future? Probably not. Which, have fun with the Nick Foles, Andy Dalton tandem. Where did Trubisky land? In Buffalo? Really interesting. The Bills. Just silent assassins. I'm so excited. The NFL has all these new faces making the playoffs now. Especially in the NFC North. Or the AFC North, sorry. Where, essentially all but said and done every week. When New England was in town. With Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So, stay tuned. I'm going to have a couple of guests coming up. I think the NFL draft is not this weekend, but next. After the NFL draft, I'm going to have my buddy on, and we're going to do the way too early fantasy draft takes, just because I love fantasy football. This guy is an absolute freak. He is just charting everything, and he's going to be great. So I'm excited to have him on. And they're going to have a college athlete on sometime soon too. So, when, I'm going to try to talk to, the goal of the podcast, try to talk to as many people as I can about different shit. Hopefully sports related, sometimes not sports related. Get takes on stuff that I don't know about, and hopefully people find it interesting. So thank you for listening today. It went 45 minutes. I thought it was only going to go 30, but I could talk about the draft until, my tongue fell out of my mouth. So thank you for listening and have a good night.